Hello everybody, Necromancy for Kids here once again. This time with a special video about a custom Go Format card contest that I held on the Go Format Europe Discord somewhat recently. I had people make their own custom cards that they wish were in Go format, and I judged them along with my friends Chopper and Ron Swanson, who are also on the Academy League team with me. And there was a lot of really cool submissions, a lot of cards that either the effect, the idea, the artwork, there was so many cool things about these cards, and I loved all of them, but unfortunately, only a couple of them could win. The prizes for the contest were first place got a $10 dueling book donation code, which lets them use custom sleeves and custom avatars for 30 days, and $5 donation code for second place, and also a $5 donation code for third place. And the rest of them would be included in this video. They could submit up to 3 cards, but they could only get a placement with one of their cards. So for instance, one of their cards won first place, they couldn't also win second place with another one of their cards. Just so that it's more fair to everyone else, and there's not pure advantage to submitting more than one card. And like to share the love. I like to do creative contests and creative videos and basically just get people to think and do creative things. With all that said, let me move on to the criteria that the cards were judged on, and in the process I'll show you what cards I had made myself, not as actual submissions to the contest, because it wouldn't be fair as a judge to submit my own cards and grade my own cards. But just to give you an example, I've made it 3 of them. So here we go. The first one that I'll show here is the Living Soul Stone. It is a level 9 rock with 1800 attack, 2400 defense, light, and you can special summon it from your hand by removing from play 1 ritual spell card or 1 ritual monster card. And while it is face up on the field, you can also use face up monsters your opponent controls as tributes when performing a ritual summon. I won't go too in depth about the utility of this because it is my own card and I'm just using this as an example, but I will for some of the other cards. And to give you an example of the rating system, I had Chopper and Ron Swanson give their own ratings for this card. Normally it'd be out of 30 and then the total would be out of 90 because my ratings would be in there as well. But for this instance, it was out of 20. And first up is balance. And for balance, it is a measure of how powerful or how weak a card is. If it's a completely useless card, it's going to get a 1 out of 10 from the judge. And the same thing if it is a completely overpowered card, like it just says you win the game, it would also get a 1 out of 10. So to get a 10 out of 10 for the card, you would need to be perfectly balanced. It's just good enough to be playable but not completely destroy the game. And for all of these different factors, we also considered it specifically in the context of if this was printed magically into the past into Go format specifically, not for like modern play or anything. Next up, there is cohesion, which is a bit of a strange one, but basically it's saying if we think the card art and the card effect and all of that fits with Go format, and also if we like it and we can understand it and we think it's fitting for what the card is. So for instance, if your card is Pickle Monster and you put a picture of a crab, that's going to lose you points because why is it called Pickle Monster but it's a crab? And at the same time, if you put an effect in and it's like you are win the game you did, that's going to get you a 1 out of 10 pretty much as well. For this one, we didn't want to give too many points for specifically artwork, and we didn't want to take away too many points from people having improper card text because, one, in Go format, card text is pretty hit or miss, whether or not it actually makes sense. And two, because we have a lot of people on the Europe server, of course, that English is not their first language, so we didn't want to punish them too much for that either. Then for the other score, it is literally anything. Whether we like the card, if we think it's good for the meta, anything that we could think of for criteria, we put into other. So that way personal preference doesn't play too much of a role in the grading, but it still is a third of the score in the end. So for this card specifically, I got a 12 in balance. It's not broken or too bad. And then I got a 19 in cohesion out of 20. So they thought it was pretty understandable and the card artwork was good. And for other, I got a 16 out of 20 for a total of 47 out of 60. And the comments that they had about this is that it is pretty good support for ritual monster decks, and they especially liked that it helps relinquish decks. But what they didn't like is that it can be abused with Metamorphosis to make Master of Oz because it's level 9. Chopper wasn't sure if that would be so much a problem as Ron Swanson. If it was a level 8 or level 10, they said they wouldn't have marked it down as much. And I think that's a fair judgment of the card. With that out of the way, the next card that I made was the Burning Vortexling. I wanted to support fire and wind monsters, which are very, very underused decks in Go format, and fair enough why they aren't used very much. But I like them and I wanted to add some support. So it is a Pyro Wind, because it is a Burning Tornado, and it has 1100 attack and 500 defense. When tribute summoning a fire or wind monster, you can treat this one monster as 2 tributes. That was kind of just an addition to put in all the fun decks that require 2 tribute for their monsters, especially in the case of Infernal Flame Emperor. And when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, add 1 fire or wind monster from your deck to your hand, except Burning Vortexling. For balance, it got a 14 out of 20, cohesion 15 out of 20, other 16 out of 20 for a total of 45. They like that it opens up non-meta attribute deck possibilities. You can search for things like Thestalos, for example, but they didn't feel that it even went far enough, even with an effect where you can add any monster of the attribute, regardless of attack and defense, when it's destroyed. It still didn't feel like it did enough. And Chopper didn't feel that the artwork actually fit for GOAT format or Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, and I think that's fair enough. You'll also see that at the bottom of each of these slides, I've included the source of the image. I want to give credit where credit is due for artists, and if you see that there's an incorrect source here, then please let me know in the comments and I will get it fixed and get the proper credit. Nobody is making any money off of any of this because I don't have monetized videos, and even if I did, I would demonetize this video specifically because I don't want to profit off of someone else's work without them getting proper pay. And also the people who entered the contest didn't actually get paid money. It was basically a donation on their behalf that was done. All right, so for the next one, we have a third card, Tower of Swords. They thought it was extremely balanced with an 18, a 14 out of 20 cohesion, a 16 out of 20 for another score, and a total of 48 out of 60. The artwork is something that I commissioned myself for something unrelated. It is a Fiend Earth level 4, 1900, 1400. Once per turn during either player's turn, you can discard a non-effect monster from your hand. If you do, draw a card, and until the end of the turn, face-up monsters you control, except for effect monsters, are unaffected by other monster effects. I specifically put non-effect monster because there are cards like non-effect rituals in your hand that you could have that you want to discard, and I wanted to be able to support them, even though they're probably not going to be very strong. And I mainly wanted to have it for cycling cards, but I tacked on the effect to protect from effect monster effects. And I think it's fair because it only affects non-effect monsters, so the opponent could still target or destroy Tower of Swords with their own monster effect, instead of whatever normal monsters or non-effect monsters you're protecting, like Performance of Sword or Hungry Burger. They said that they really like the art a lot, and they think that it's decent support for normal monsters, but the wording is a bit long-winded and maybe a little bit confusing to read. That was the end of my 3 cards, so we'll move on to the cards that other people made. I'm going to start with the top 11 cards because we had a tie for 10th and 11th pretty much, and it's going to go from 11 to first place, and then 2 honorable mentions that we wanted to specifically single out, and then I'll show you all the rest of the cards that were included in the contest at the end, and if I remember to properly, it should all be tagged, so you could check the video description to hop to the correct point or use the chapters in the video. So for 11th place, we have, submitted by Not So Fast, is Fair Knight Parshath, which is a level 4 fairy light monster with 2100 attack and 1500 defense. And it says, if this card attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. If this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent draws 1 card. You could see for the rating, we thought it was extremely balanced, and we really liked the idea of the card. What ended up losing at points in the end was the cohesion with the card art specifically, which it would have been better if it wasn't squashed and if it had an actual background. But as far as positives, we really loved that the card fits in the beater niche for light monsters without being too powerful, because there isn't really much in Go format for light beaters, and it helps to support decks like the Greed Burn decks, Heavy Slump, and things like that like to have your opponent draw cards. And while it can deal a buttload of damage, like if you're attacking into scapegoat tokens and stuff, your opponent does get to draw cards, so they're going to be able to more easily find outs or win the game on their turn. Overall, I really liked it, and so did the other judges, and so here it is at 11th place. Next up, we have Mark Field / Yada Yada with Shepherd, the Goat Herder, at level 4 Rock Earth with 1500, 1800, and when this card is summoned, it gains 200 attack, and if this card attacks a face-up defense position monster, destroy that monster with this card's effect without applying damage calculation. We thought it was a really balanced card, and it's a nice addition to Ratbox and Earth Beater decks, and we also really enjoyed the artwork, which is extremely cute, but what ended up losing at points was that the effect wasn't extremely original, because there are already monsters that do that in Go format, such as Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke, but we thought it was a cool card regardless. Next up at 9th place, we have Cameron's card, From Whence You Came. It is a quick play spell card that says return to the hand all cards that are not controlled by their original owners. It has a really high balance score. I mean, thought it had good cohesion, and it got a total of 66 points out of 90. We like that it has a effect that can be used in a variety of situations, which are meta relevant, like Creature Swap, Thousand Eyes Restrict, Stealing Your Monster, Ojama Trio, being able to bounce the opponent's tokens so you don't get burned as much, as well as other things like Lava Golem. What we didn't like about the card, though, was that usually it was better to just activate Compulsory Evacuation Device, except for in cases like Ojama Trio. And also the artwork felt a little bit out of place for Yu-Gi-Oh!, or at the very least out of place for GOAT format. But overall, it was still a cool card, and it was actually one of my favorites, especially because I actually had an idea for a similar card of my own. You know what they say, great minds think alike. Then next up at 8th place, we have a Ritual Monster by PQ2, Toon Relinquished, which is a Spellcaster Ritual, Dark level 1 with 0/0. It got really high balance, And we liked the card as a concept, and we really enjoyed the art as well. But where it lost points was in the cohesion, which is mostly because its effect is extraordinarily long, and it seems to do too much that also isn't really needed to be all in one card. It sort of felt like they tried to fix everything that was wrong with Toon decks in one card. Maybe a bit too ambitious, but we do like that it supported Toon decks, and we especially like that it's able to protect the Toons. So its effect now, I'll read. Obviously, the Ritual Summon effect, it can only be Ritual Summoned by Toon Black Illusion Ritual, and it cannot attack the turn it is summoned, just like normal Toon monsters. While you control Toon World, and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, this card can attack your opponent directly, and once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls, and equip that target to this card, and it gains attack and defense equal to the opponent's monster, just like Relinquished. Same thing for if it's attacked, the equipped monster is destroyed, and Toon Relinquished is not. It also has the same burn effect as Relinquished, and then it has an additional effect of other Toon monsters can attack the turn they are summoned, and you do not pay life points to declare an attack with Toon monsters. And if Toon World on the field is destroyed, destroy this card. But during either player's turn, if you control Toon World, you can target one Toon World or one Toon monster on the field and return that target to the hand. So it felt like there was just a bit too much text, but overall it's a cool card. There's also the ritual here, Toon Black Illusion Ritual. They count as one card for grading sake, because otherwise it's not fair to grade a ritual without the ritual monster, because you have no idea what the monster does. And plus you can get kind of original with the effects of the ritual, like this one, which you can ritual summon normally by attributing a monster, or if you control Toon World, you could pay 1,000 life points instead. We liked the alternate casting ability and thought it was good without being too overpowered, and it's very thematic. And the only thing we didn't like was that the background is pure white. It's kind of understandable. I know that some of Kazuki Takahashi's actual cards that he made have white backgrounds, but it would have been nice if there was more there. Next up is 7th place, Spire with Magical Veil, which is a quick play spell card. If your face-up spellcaster type monster is targeted by your opponent's card effect, this turn that monster is unaffected by that card effect. As well, other cards of the same type of a card, monster, spell, or trap, as your opponent's card. During the turn you activate this card, you can only activate one card effect after this card resolves. So we really liked the artwork on this one, and we liked that it helps to boost spellcaster archetype, which isn't really very cohesive in Go format. Allows you to possibly make an actual deck out of that with things like Injection Fairy Lily and Chaos Sorcerer and Breaker, or Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. But we didn't like that it reads a lot like a current format card with all of the specific activation requirements and the activate only one card effect after you activate it. And we didn't like so much that it's just a flat negate card. We thought that was a little bit boring, but it still got 66 out of 90 points for 7th place. Very cool card. At 6th place, we have Leebug's Phantom Guard. It is a normal trap card that allows you to banish one monster from your graveyard to target one face-up spell or trap you control and place a soul counter on it. If it would be destroyed, remove the soul counter from it instead, but you can only have one soul counter on your side of the field. We thought that the artwork was extremely cool. It was actually something that they drew themselves, and we thought that it was decently balanced. Got a total score of 68 out of 90. We like that it allowed support for a lot of strategies that rely on the spell traps but aren't just pure stall, such as maybe skill drain decks or decks that use Light of Intervention, things like that, or maybe even aforementioned Greed card. The only things that really lost at points in the end is that there are many cards that have a similar sort of impact in GOAT format of being able to negate a card effect that would destroy a card, even if it doesn't do exactly what this card does, such as Curse of Royal, Judgment of Anubis, Solemn Judgment, and Fake Trap. And also, one of the judges was confused on why it specifically had to be a dark monster and why it had to only be from your own graveyard. It felt like to them that it would have been more interesting if it could also banish from the opponent's graveyard. But overall, really cool card and really amazing art. And thank you very much for that submission as well. Next up, we have 5th place with Funky. He made the card Dreamline, which is a level 3 Wing Beast Flip Wind with 1110 attack and 500 defense. He got a total of 68 points, had a really high cohesion score and really high balance. We thought that it had a potentially powerful effect that was kept in line by its type and attribute, so it's not just a staple card you put in every single deck, which its effect is, that I forgot to say, was when it's flipped, you target one set card on the field and destroy it. If it was a spell card, you gain 1500 life points, which means that it could destroy a set monster, which is very relevant, or set spell or trap, which is relevant against warriors if they don't end up being able to kill us in battle with their Blade Knight, etc. It could backfire because it is mandatory, but Chopper liked that you had to be able to think of when you're going to play it, rather than just mindlessly, oh yeah, well it's a great card, so I'll just play it now. What we didn't like about it is that some of the elements about it seemed a little bit random, like the 1110 attack and the life gain ability as well. But overall, again, a really cool card. And now we get to 4th place. Janjo sent in the card Ritual Gate, which they edited the image themselves from Fusion Gate and Black Illusion Ritual. It had 70 points out of 90, which just barely caused it to fall out of the top 3 by 1 point, unfortunately. But unfortunately, that's the way that it goes. The card is a field spell card that says, while its card is in the field, you can ritual summon one ritual monster from your hand by banishing monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal the level of that ritual monster. And if a ritual monster on your side of the field would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can destroy this card instead. So it's essentially like a fusion gate for ritual monsters, which in a way provides a lot of potential explosive power and sustainability to ritual decks, and the ability to protect your monster from being destroyed. While that does feel a little bit like a modern card effect, it still is something that we feel that rituals needed to help boost their power overall. And if this was printed into GOAT format, we think that it would have a decent impact, or at the very least, make for an interesting deck. What we didn't like about the card is that it piggybacks off of Fusion Gate, and it's essentially the same card. As well, we didn't like that the art elements are from existing cards. Now up to 3rd place. We have Hibiki's Super Machine King Overload, which got 71 points. Again, just beating out Janjo's card by 1 point. It is a level 8 machine, Earth, with 2500 attack, 2000 defense. And it has the cannot be normal summoned or set clause, but can be special summoned by banishing 2 machine type monsters from your graveyard and cannot be special summoned by other ways. It gains 100 attack for each other machine type monster on the field. And once per turn, you can target one machine type monster you control and one card your opponent controls and destroy those targets. We really liked the art on this one, even if it doesn't exactly fit for GOAT format. It still was really cool, thematic, and awesome. And we think that it's decent support for machine types with a bounce enough effect in GOAT format. The only problem is that with machines, you always run into the issue of balance based off of limiter removal, which is the one way that those machine decks can fight back against people. And while it's cool for decks to be able to fight back against the meta, it isn't very fun for them to fight back by doing OTKs. So that's why it ended up losing some balance. But overall, we really enjoyed the card, and congratulations to Hibiki for 3rd place. Then next up, second place, we have Kupichu's card, got 73 points out of 90, and it is Mala and Oso, the Delinquent duo, as well as the fusion materials that go with it. It is a Beast level 6 fusion with 2200, 1800, and when this card is fusion summoned, ask your opponent if you can draw 2 cards. Then based on the answer, apply this effect. Yes, draw 2 cards, or no, target 2 cards on the field, destroy them. One of the major bonuses of this is that we felt extremely balanced, almost perfectly balanced, got a 29 out of 30. Since it can't be abused by Metamorphosis due to its effect being tied to being fusion summoned, and as well because your opponent gets to pick the effect, it's not necessarily going to blow out the opponent. What we didn't like is that the pictures for these cards are photos. They're really cute dogs, and the photos are nice. But to be fair, they are photos instead of images, so they don't really fit with Yu-Gi-Oh! And while the wording is fun about asking the opponent if you can draw 2 cards, it isn't technically standard, so it did lose some points for that in cohesion. And here are the 2 fusion materials that go along with that card. Mala and Oso. Mala is a level 4 beast, dark, 1100, 2000, and when it's normal summoned or flip face up, you add 1 Oso from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And Oso is a level 2 beast with 900 attack, 900 defense. Vanilla, no effect, but again, very cute card. The ability to search for your materials solves one of the problems of fusions without being overpowered, because you are just using a 2000 wall and a 900 vanilla. What we didn't like though is that Oso, of course, has pretty much no use on his own, even as a beater, and it felt like the attributes were more related to the personality of the dogs, or maybe the color of the fur, than actually any real balance factor. But again, thank you very much, and congratulations on the 2nd place. Now, 1st place, with 74 out of 90 points, we had Alice's Flare, Master of the Pyroball. It is a spellcaster, level 4 fire, with 1800, 1000, and when this card is summoned, place 1 Pyroball counter on it, maximum 1. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can remove 1 Pyroball counter from this card, negate its effect, also banish it face down. We think that it's an extremely powerful effect, being able to banish the opponent's monster and negate its effect, but because it is a fire monster and a spellcaster instead of like a dark or light warrior, it balances out because it's not an automatic include in any decks. It's just a decent aggro card, and we really like the cute artwork as well. What we didn't like about it though was that the Pyroball counter seemed a little bit random. It didn't necessarily make sense why it had to be a Pyroball counter. It could have been something like a spell counter. And also, banishing face down isn't something that's very common in Go format, but we thought that the card was well balanced again, and overall we liked this one the most. So congratulations again to Alice for your 1st place win. They got themselves a $10 DB code, and the previous 2 got $5. Hopefully they'll put that to good use, and hopefully everyone had some fun with this contest. Before I go on to the rest of the submissions that we're not going to have really a description for, I want to give an honorable mention to 2 cards that we found very interesting for their own reasons. Those are End User's Mystic Power of the Tribes. It is a normal trap. that says declare 2 attributes. Your opponent selects one of them. Also, any damage to your opponent is halved until the end of the next turn. And then either player can use one of the following effects: add 1 monster of the declared attribute from their deck to their hand, or gain 500 life points. You can only activate 1 mystic power of the tribes per turn. We thought that it was a really cool effect that has a lot of possibilities, and it's an interesting concept in general for a card, but we felt like it ended up being weighed down by too many restrictions, too many options for the opponent, and we weren't sure overall what sort of impact it would have on GOAT. Possibly it would be either too overpowered in certain scenarios, in other scenarios it would be completely useless, or actively bad for you to activate it. And it reads a little bit too much like a modern card. As well, the text is a little bit wonky as you're reading through it because there's so many different restrictions and options in it. But we wanted to highlight this card because we thought it was one of the most original card effects that was submitted. Then next up we have the last honorable mention, which is Pui's 10,000 Eyes Restrict, a level 2 fusion, spellcaster Dark 00. Its fusion materials are Relinquished and Manju of the 10,000 Hands. Once per turn, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls. Equip that target to this card, maximum 1. While equipped with a monster, this card gains attack and defense equal to the equipped monster's original attack and defense. And if this card would be destroyed by battle, destroy the equipped monster instead. The effects of other monsters on the field are negated. We really liked that Pui ended up drawing the artwork themselves for this card, and we wanted to highlight that especially because not too many people drew artwork specifically for the card that they wanted to submit. And in fact, I could be wrong. You might see earlier on that I'm incorrect about this. There's only 2 people that actually made their own art without doing like editing from existing cards. And we wanted to thank Pui for the extra effort that they put into doing so. What we didn't like about the card though was that while it would be extremely balanced for a fusion summon and very thematic as well, being 10,000 hands and 10,000 eyes, we don't like that with Metamorphosis you essentially get a level 2 1,000 Eyes Restrict. We didn't feel that it's really something that we needed in GOAT format, even if it's a cool idea for a card, especially with the final effect of other monsters on the field have their effects negated. But overall, we really liked the card, and as you can see, we rated it very highly for cohesion for the artwork, and it's very easy to read and very thematic, we felt. With all that, we are going to move on to all the rest of the cards that were submitted. Again, thank you very much to everybody who submitted their cards, and I liked all of them for their own different reasons. As well, the other judges did too, both Chopper and Ron Swanson. I hope that even though these cards didn't win, people still had fun doing the contest, and that if we do another one in the future, they will submit some more cards, and who knows, maybe we'll do something with these if people think that's okay. With all that said, please enjoy. If at any time you would like to read these cards more in depth, feel free to pause the video. It should be legible. And if not, you can always ask them on the Go From Out of Europe Discord to tell you what they do.